So I just finished watching. Oh, hey, good morning, comrades. Anyway, so I just I just finished watching. The English title is A Silent Voice, but that's not like what the Japanese title is. It's like a single voice or something. I can't remember. I looked it up. I was like, this doesn't look right. Again, my Japanese is very rudimentary, but when I look at like the title and then I like watch the show, I'm like, I don't think that's right. Anyway, a silent voice doesn't really work. Anyway, it does on like a dumb level, but not in like the way I think the people who converted the name over think it does. Anyway, it's a story. It's a slice of life anime movie about some kids in like somewhere Tokyo. Why not? So it starts off and we meet main character Kun, and he hangs out with his like bunch of kids, and there's like a girl that he sits next to in elementary school that they kind of have like a thing. They're not like dating or anything. They're in elementary school, but there's definitely like a friendship there. And then this new girl comes to school, and she's deaf. So at first everyone's like, "Oh, fun." And they like, use her notebook to like write back and forth and all this good stuff. And then people kind of get like sick of it because they're kids, and they start ignoring her or kind of like talking behind her back, and then the main character Kun becomes like a real bully, and like the first like half an hour or so of this movie is like kind of a tough watch because it's like, fuck, man, that's some jacked up shit to do. Like one of the things is he keeps stealing her like she has a hearing aid, right? Because she's not completely deaf, and so she can kind of hear, and then she can kind of speak, and she keeps I keep stealing her hearing aid and like tossing them, and then like she keeps trying to be friends with like main character Kun's like girlfriend essentially. And at first she was nice, and then she wasn't. And then there's this other chick, Miki, who is kind of like more quieter, but she's nice to her. But then she kind of starts just ignoring her because it's like too much work, So it's like kind of like a very sad situation. And then, yeah, and eventually it kind of like blows up with the main character like throwing her notebook in the water or like being like a real asshole. And so then like the principal has to come and is like, "Hey, we've gotten reports that someone here is like bullying the deaf chick like real bad. Like, who is it?" And then everyone's just sitting quietly. But then the teacher's like, "All right, I've had a fuck enough of this. We all know it's you, main character Kun. Stand up. Stand the fuck up." And like, I don't know how Japanese stuff goes, but like in America, I don't know if that would fly. Like, it would have gone this far. Just saying. So, oh fuck, what's going on up here with traffic, bro? I don't have time for this shit. So then he stands up, and then he starts complaining that everyone's bullying the deaf girl, and he like starts calling people out, like his friend and this girl and other people, and that does not inure him to the rest of the class. So then they all turn on him, and she actually ends up going. The deaf girl goes to a different school, and then he ends up getting bullied like real bad as well, like in her place by everybody, and time goes on, and eventually he's like, and then it's like we do like a time skip, and he's in high school, and we see him like working, and then going to school, and then he's like selling everything and giving stuff away, and then he leaves like an envelope. Oh, at some point, the mom finds out that he's been fucking around with this girl, and she takes a bunch of money to like pay back the hearing aids, and like goes and like apologizes to the mom by like bowing down on the ground and being like, and all this stuff, and then it's a very Japanese thing to do. And his mom's like a hairdresser, which isn't super important, but it like is around. Gosh, this kid. Anyway, just found out my son's like going crazy and pulling stuff off the walls or whatever. So sorry. So then we skip ahead, and then he's about to go kill himself. Like he's about to jump off a bridge to die, and then he's staying in there, and he like has a change of heart. He's like, like he sees like a firework or there's like a bright light, and he stops himself and he's like, I'm not going to do it. So then he's sitting around at breakfast the next morning with like his niece, who we never see. It's interesting. We never see his sister. He clearly has an older sister, and this little girl who's like the niece is like around. And so I got confused because I was like, wait, is that his mom or his sister? But at some point, the little girl says like grandma, and I'm like, no, that's. And then we at the very like end of the movie, we see this guy, and it's like someone's like, who's that? And it's like, oh, that's my son-in-law. He's deployed, or he just got back from his deployment or something. And we never once see like the sister. So I don't know if she's dead or not around, or like it's one of those things where it's like maybe there was like a mention of it, but it wasn't translated. That's the interesting thing about watching some of this stuff is like sometimes I'm like, I don't know if this was like if I watched the original Japanese or subtitles, maybe you get more information. I feel like sometimes you just miss out on stuff, or maybe they just didn't bring it up because it wasn't like relevant to the main story. But the sister is not around, so I'm assuming she's dead because the mom, the grandma, is essentially raising the granddaughter and this kid. And anyway, and then like her dad's like around, but again he was deployed, so he wasn't around. So and then the mom is like, what's this? And she like slaps down the money, and he's like, sorry mom, I was gonna kill myself, but I changed my mind. And she like flips out and like burns the money and is like, don't you ever effing do that again, like blah 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, I won't, I'm sorry. And then now he's depressed, and we see him just he's like can't make connections with people. Like the bullying like really did a number on him. And we see that because every time he sees people that aren't like his family, they have like X's across their face. And he talks about we can't look people in the face, and like he's just lonely and all this stuff. And then he bumps into, in this high school, the deaf girl who he hadn't seen since elementary school. And so at some point he learned sign language, probably because he felt so bad. And so then he tries to like reconnect with her, and she's got like a little sister who's like always tagging along with her and trying to protect her. But eventually they start to like become friends. And then the movie's just about him like, he makes friends with like this kind of fat kid who gets treated poorly in school as well. So they become like best friends. And then he like reconnects with one of the other girls, some of these other girls from elementary school. Like there was this girl who was like, her parents were clearly poor. And they like, we got a little commentary about people making fun of her. Like, does she even know how to dress herself? Stuff like that, right? And because she was friends with the deaf, she was like the only one who was like willing to learn sign language and be friends with the deaf girl. And then at some point she like disappeared or ran away or something. So then, a main character Kun helps deaf girl like reconnect with her, and then he bumps into like the girlfriend essentially, and then she's kind of flirty with him, but then she like hates the deaf girl, and so they get into like some fight, and then he like reconnects with Miki, who now has a boyfriend, and he's a super nice guy in high school. And so then at some point they're all hanging out together and they're all having a good time like at the theme park, and he bumps into like his old buddies, or at least one of the old buddies, and he's like kind of an asshole to him still, or he's not super, he's like, oh hey, what's up, right? So there's a lot of like interplay and a lot of different stuff going on. And then like deaf girl and other girl get into like a big fight, and then he kind of breaks down and tells everyone to go fuck off. And then it's like summer break, so he spends most of the summer break just hanging out with deaf girl and her sister. And again, it's a slice of life. So what I'm describing is like a plot. The plot is like kind of irrelevant almost, because it's all about like the interactions and how people like care about each other and take care of each other and like learn and grow, and how like they recover from all this stuff. And then at some point they're at like the summer festival, right, with like the fireworks and the yukatas and all that. And he's hanging out with the deaf girl, her sister, and her mom, because it was like, oh, and then like the grandma dies, like not his mom, grandma, like the deaf girl's grandma who was living with him, who was really close, and it's like some kind of sad stuff. And then at some point he puts two and two. They're at the festival, and she's like, I'm gonna go study, I'll see you later, like during the fireworks part. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he bumps into like the younger sister, and the mom stuck around, and the sister's like, oh, can you go get my camera, because remember the fireworks go on for an hour. And so he's like, I'll run to your house real quick and get it. So he goes there and he walks in, and it's at some point he puts two and two together, and he's like, oh, she's going to kill herself. And she's like standing on their balcony about ready to jump off. And he runs over, and as she jumps, he grabs her arm and he like saves her, and then is able to like pull her up, but then he falls into like there's like a pool or something underneath, thank goodness. So he doesn't die, but he's like in a coma for a while. And then like all the kids, like, they talk about it and kind of rectify that and like deal with that. And then we learn that she's been suicidal for like a long time, because the mom and the sister talk about how they tried all this stuff to get her to not kill herself. and that they were thankful for this guy because not only did he save her in the moment, but he was like kind of prolonging her like desire to be alive at all. And it's another one of those things where it's like you would never see suicide treated this well and accurately. Not never, but I've never seen this in like an American thing. Like you have like 13 Reasons Why, which kind of glamorized it, right? And then like went over. It was like very dramatic. This was just very simple. Like I got bullied a lot. I didn't have friends. I'm like a burden on my mother who doesn't treat me super well. My sister's like not going to school because she's always worried about taking care of me. Like I'm tired. I'm just like a burden to everyone. There's no point for me being alive. And some of this stuff kind of comes up as the show's going on, like the way she speaks to people. Like the one chick like calls her out on it, like you need to stop being starry and stand up for yourself. And she's like, I'm sorry. She's like, you're effing doing it again. I think that was like what they fought a couple times. That might have been like the main fight where he just like isolates himself from everybody. And he has like another breakdown where he's like, you were bullying her and you were bullying her and all this stuff comes out, and it's just kind of like, But then by the end of the show, after he comes out of his coma, they all kind of rectify and become friends again, and he learns that like the mean girl essentially was at his bedside like the entire time he was in a coma and always helping him, and at some point she was like gatekeeping the deaf girl from like coming in because essentially she still blames the deaf girl for like everything bad that happened in her life, like him getting bullied, like their friendships all breaking up, like if she'd never been around, right? So but then the deaf girl kind of like she doesn't have a renewal on life because that's what happens when you survive trying to kill yourself, is people have like a new lease on life. So she makes like a lot of amends to be friends with the mean girl and be friends with everybody and to like reconnect with the poor girl who was nice, the only one who was like nice to her and stuff. So and then it ends, he wakes up from his coma and he finds her, and they don't hug it out, but clearly they're going to be friends. And he promises that he's going to start looking people in the eyes again, and he goes to like the school festival, and like his dumpy little friend who's like the super homie, like they make amends, they hug it out, and then let me think, yeah, and then they're just kind of walking around like the whole crew, and they're talking about hanging out and doing stuff again and being friends, and then he looks around, and then it's like all the X's fall off the people's faces to symbolize that like he also has like a new renewed sense of purpose in life. And the X's are used throughout the show to kind of represent like when he's making connections with people and feels comfortable with them, and then when he feels like isolated from them again. So it's very well done. So the movie is pretty good. I like all the motifs. It's very much like slice of life. Like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I enjoyed it and it was good. I don't know if I'd like think about watching it like without like a specific purpose. Like my kids want to watch something when they're like at least teenagers that's a little more serious, or even like adults. Like the subject matter is pretty heavy. And there's a lot of like not symbology, but it's a lot of like metaphors and kind of stuff like that in visual storytelling. Like it does an excellent job of being like a visual medium and like a movie to like tell the story. So you got to like pay attention and kind of like understand why things are like why they're showing certain things, or like why things are going on. Like the movie does not explain itself, as it should not, which makes it good. So I really enjoyed it, and I'd recommend it. Again, it's one of these like sad movies where you're like, man, it's not super sad. It's just kind of like sitting through some of that is like, man, this is intense stuff. Like this is like real good stuff. And intense, not like, oh, stupid. It's just very violent, or they're like being psychotic. It's just like, man, bullies. Like it's like a very realistic depiction of like how this actually is without any like dramatization of it. That's unnecessary, right? Which you don't see too often, especially from Western media. I get tired of mentioning that, but it's like sad that it's like you never see anything like this. Like maybe back in the 80s, like there was like a Saved by the Bell episode about suicide, and you're like, that was pretty intense. But like now it's like verboten to like have any deep, meaningful subject matter. So it's kind of unfortunate. But anyway, good stuff. Cool. Catch y'all later.